Hi, everybody. This is Karen Huller with Epic Careering. Thanks so much for joining me on this Thursday night. I am really excited to spend some time with you talking about the 7 stages to landing in September. I am a certified professional resume writer. That's what that CPRW means next to my name. And at Epic Careering, I'm a chief career, personal brand, and social media strategist. And more recently, I landed at Drexel's LeBeau College of Business as an adjunct professor in career management and professional development. We'll talk more about that later. Throughout these slides, you'll see this link at the bottom. Because this is a webinar, I don't think you're going to be able to click on it, but I will be telling you more about what that link is. You can go check it out at any time, of course, but more than that's kind of a sidebar. I want you to get a lot of value out of this webinar and make it so that you land in September. Let the hiring season begin. I know it seems like hiring slows down during the summer. I mean, everything kind of slows down in the summer. Everybody gets in that vacation mode. It can seem like, you might have had plans like me to get a whole lot done over the summer, thinking that, oh yeah, when work slows down or not as much as possible, I'll be able to get this done and that done, and then find that you're busy just with other things, hopefully some very fun things. And that is exactly what happens in hiring, is that people get busy with other things, and it's harder to get the stakeholders in a room that make decisions about hiring. So the interview process takes longer, filling positions takes longer. It doesn't necessarily mean that the job market is slow. There's still plenty of opportunities and plenty of things happen in the summer that make it possible for people to land. Some people retire in the summer and they need to be replaced. Some people go on maternity leave in the summer. Some people quit their jobs in the summer and need to be replaced. So summer is still a fine time to look for a job, but I find on my end that many of the clients who had initiatives to transition usually put it off until September. But hopefully what they've been doing over the summer is getting themselves all set up to transition. Now, what I know is true is that they probably have not, much like the things that I have had on my list to do that I didn't. And we're going to talk about how you can catch up real fast so that this surge of hiring that starts to occur, surge of activity around hiring, is something you can leverage. Companies start really on a push to reach their fourth quarter goals and reach their annual goals in time, pending their fiscal year starts in January, and vacations are over and everybody's back to business. And that's what we're helping you do right now, is get back to the business of job searching. And today we're going to talk about the 7 stages, what they are, and the three ways for each stage that you can accelerate and optimize it. So accelerating it means making it go faster so that it takes as little time as possible, and then optimizing it means, we're going to talk about what each stage looks like in an optimized fashion, and then you're going to have the ability to rate yourself. I just did this webinar and unfortunately did not hit record. So I'm redoing this webinar right now. You will not have the chance to rate yourself or do anything live or ask questions live in this recording of the webinar, and you also will not be able to see me on the webcam. Because the webcam does not get recorded for these webinars. It was actually causing the webinar to slow down anyway and causing some audio issues, so I turned it off. So whether you wanted to see me or not, I think that I'll probably record a video after the fact that just thanks people for watching the video and shows them how to get more value. Also, as promised in the marketing for this webinar, the number one best way to start your job search if you want to make sure you land the right job, how to give employers exactly what they need to know in order to entice them to interview you, even if there's no position that seems to be open at the time. 3 critical steps that have been borrowed from corporations that ensure that you will make progress in your job search, and how to make sure that every conversation that you have leads to inspired action, not just on the other person's part, but on yours as well. I'd love for you to stay with me until the end. At the end, I'm going to tell you how to get more help and get even further, ever faster. We have 90 minutes together. Actually, in the recording that I just did, we went a little bit over time, so I'm going to try and do this more expeditiously this time around, especially because I might lose my voice in the middle of it. And I have to sing tomorrow, I just remembered. Hopefully I won't lose my voice tonight then. But I did tell people that I was going to record it and that I'd offer to it. And I wanted to make sure that I kept my word, and in keeping my word, I'll also make sure that at the end of this, if what I offer to you isn't enough that helps you get started tomorrow, so that you can catch up, I want to give you a way that you can get extra support from us and continue to make progress and land in September, if that's truly what your goal is. And I'm assuming if you're here, then landing in September sounds like a pretty awesome thing to do. Also, what I'll share with you at the end is the number one difference between those that will land in September and those that might take a little longer or maybe even much longer. So let me tell you a little bit how I got here. Like most people, my first example of careering was my parents. And unfortunately, what I learned from my parents did not make careers look very appealing to me, especially corporate careers. They made it look like it was boring, like it zapped your energy. It was an obligation. It was just a means to a paycheck, and the paycheck wasn't enough. They would come home tired. They would come home grumpy. There was drama. There was, politics. It just seemed awful. I didn't want to work. Thankfully for me, I wanted to go to college, so I continued to excel in academics and be involved in activities and at least have a direction. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do in the end. I thought about journalism, and then I learned that the power of a journalist to portray a particular view of the world, and how that can be leveraged by people with their own agendas. It just didn't appeal to me at all. It was a little bit heavy. It wasn't as fun as I thought, and it maybe wasn't. I wouldn't be able to make a contribution that was in my choice with that career. So I chose something lighter eventually, and that was radio. And while radio was fun, and there were a lot of great perks to working in radio, what I realized is that it didn't pay very well. And for a woman to be in radio, I would have to do some things that, or be somebody that I didn't necessarily want to be, at least as far as I could see from my limited viewpoint at the time. And I thankfully had to temp in order to make ends meet bill-wise, and I found recruiting. I worked in a support role for 3 months in a recruiting office, and I just really loved the fact that you could give somebody a job and give them an opportunity to, put their skills to work. And people would come in the door and they actually eagerly wanted these jobs. It was eye-opening. And then the recruiter that I was working under, was, able to decide if who was the right person, and, when they got to start. And it was just really cool. What I learned about recruiting and getting a job in recruiting is that sales was a skill that was going to come in handy. So I didn't go straight to recruiting. It took me actually several years to be in the actual recruiting role. I had some support roles before that, but I did take a sales job so that I could get some sales training and experience. And I worked going door to door with long distance services to businesses. And while I'm sure you can imagine that sounds pretty awful, and certainly on days it was great training. It was a great opportunity to thicken my skin, be out in the field, meet new people. It wound up being, a really great short stint that I was able to leverage to eventually land in recruiting. I worked for an executive search firm, and it was a boutique firm. My role was still support. I was doing sourcing, which is, finding the candidates. We were a retained firm. Our clients wanted their candidates to come from particular companies. I was going in and finding out who in those companies was the right person to target and giving their names to a recruiter. And in doing so, I was actually doing a lot of this over the phone, which is very uncomfortable for me because these companies were on to me. I mean, their employees were very attractive to many other companies. So calling in and trying to get in touch with these people, or even just get names or verify information, oftentimes I would get caught and maybe accusing me of trying to steal their people, and I wouldn't know what to do because I don't have a poker face. And eventually I was able to convince my managing director that the internet is a really credible source of information. At the time, it might have seemed like it was just, self-created content by God knows who, and who knows if this information is really credible or not. It was understandable, But in the end, what I realized was that the internet was a much better place, especially for some high security type of jobs that we wound up recruiting for later on. But then I finally found my niche, and I was on my way to actually being a recruiter when 9/11 happened, and I eventually was laid off, and that was a tough time for me. I was laid off for a long time. I mean, I think 10 months might seem not as long for people who have been in longer transitions more recently. Um, and I don't think we took as long to recover economically the last time around. I took maybe, I don't know. It took, I guess, about the same amount of time. But more recent recession was definitely worse. But I went through the same emotions that I think most people in transition go through. I was hopeful at first. I was eager at first. I actually had been pursuing coaching, which was something that I had an introduction to because the firm was evaluating whether they wanted to provide coaching as something that might be able to help people while we couldn't place people. And unfortunately, I got really excited about it, but it wasn't a decision the firm made. And but I thought maybe this was a career for me I could pursue. Now, I didn't have any actual hands-on recruiting experience, and I only had a couple years of experience in recruiting in general. So, so coaching, there wasn't really a lot of insight that I could provide to people in coaching. So I was just hoping to work under a coach, for a while and see what that was like. But in a down economy, and that's just not something that a lot of people invest in during that time. So it didn't work out. And I had 3 or 4 different companies tell me that they were ready to extend an offer. They were just waiting for the okay from finance, and that never happened. Like after a couple of months of calling these companies and just saying, "Hey, I'm ready to start. When can I start?" And then having them say, "Yeah, we're just still waiting. Things are slow. It's tough time. We're having might be having a hiring freeze. Blah blah blah." I know how much that can really beat on your spirit. It can beat on your sense of value and frustrate you, make you a little bit crazy at times, a little bit desperate. I relate to that. It's something that if I have a client call me, I can hear it in their voice. I automatically recognize what it is that's keeping them in dissonance. I loved recruiting. I got back into it. I had to take a diversion. I had to take a step back. That was hard to do. Yeah, and I was laid off again 3 months later. But I had learned what I needed to learn by being in transition 10 months and turning it around. And it only took me 5 weeks to land after that layoff. And I landed at a really great firm, IT recruiting firm. When I finally made it to a recruiter, I loved it. I loved what I was able to do, but I was conflicted by the fact that there were people who had been out of work 6 months that I couldn't present to my client. They had been turning down people who hadn't been out of work 6 months, and I don't think it was true that their skills were obsolete now that they haven't been using them for 6 months. But with other candidates to pluck from, they didn't want to see these candidates, and that was really hard for me to come to grips with. And that I had to tell these people, "I'm sorry, but you've been out of work too long." I had just come out of a 10-month transition myself. And over the years, I was able to help more people, and the economy improved, and we saw less and less candidates with those long-term unemployment issues. But still, I was saying no more than I was saying yes, and we even had this motto of screen out rather than in. And I took that really seriously. I wanted to do my job very well, but in not being able to place a lot of people, what I really wanted to do was help them. So I spent probably more time than I should have giving them feedback, giving them guidance, teaching them how they might be able to be the candidate we present next time, or how they might be able to get in around us. I mean, all I want to do is help these people. My disenchantment with recruiting began to grow at the same time. I think the morale in the company in general was getting low. They hired a coach to come in, and thank God they did, because that coach helped me realize that I had this entrepreneurial bug tapping my shoulder. I really wanted to get out and do something on my own. And the contribution that I wanted to make was really to be their coach and to write their resumes And at the time also, what was fresh and new was I was teaching recruiters how to use LinkedIn, and I wanted to teach job seekers how they could be the ones that we get to find on LinkedIn and recruit. And that was 2006. That was 9 years ago. I started my company, and I haven't looked back since. I'm not saying there haven't been tough days that I wondered, and I know recruiting is actually a very high in demand skill these days. There are always those days when you think, what if? But I know in my heart of hearts that I might dabble in recruiting. I might help people fill positions, but I think that this is the contribution. This is the side I want to advocate for more than anything else. So the 7 stages of landing in September, or really job transitioning in general. And if you hear me say transition, I don't necessarily mean changing careers or changing industries or changing roles. It's just any change. You could be in the same company and looking to make a lateral move or a move up, and that is still considered a transition. So if I use that word, I just want to put that in context for you. So the 7 stages are career discovery, which is what you want to be when you grow up, or what's the next logical step, or what are the next 5 logical steps, and where do you ultimately want to be in your career, and how do we get there from where we are right now? How can I apply my skills and talents to something new? All those questions. Branding is your unique value, and how people recognize it, and how you want to be remembered. Networking, obviously, is something that not everybody has a favorable opinion of, and it's something I'm sure you've all heard was the number one thing that you should do, but how you do it, how to make the most of it, how you can make it fun, how you make it fit your personality, those are things that still might be questions in your mind, but hopefully we can answer some of those questions today. Distribution, how do you get the word out about what you do to your network, to employers, to the world at large? Proactive pursuit, that is, I think a lot of job searching tends to be reactive. A lot of people spend their time responding to job postings and even searching job postings, and even most of the tools that are out there, most of the job searching apps, they're all directing you to these job sites that are full of open positions where you're reacting just like most other people. This is a low-hanging fruit everybody's vying for, and then you become one of thousands in a database. Proactive pursuit is more about focusing, knowing what you want, doing your research, and marketing yourself accordingly to fit that company's needs and to be exactly what they need at the time they need it. Interviewing, we all know what that is. We'll be teaching you exactly how to accelerate the interviewing process, or really optimize the interviewing process. And negotiating, we all know what that is. So we'll talk about our methodology of negotiating, which is very different from how we know some of other coaches coach people to negotiate. Career discovery starts with building your criteria. This is a lot more extensive than people think, actually. It's not just about what role do I want, what industry do I want, what geography do I want, what size company do I want. It's the best way to start. It's the number one place to start. And we actually have this tool here that enables you to go through all of these categories and select your criteria. This is, if there's must-haves, deal breakers, must-have 1 to 10 employees, just as an example. These are drop downs, by the way. So you can select one option in some places and 2 to 3 options in other places. Clientele, many small clients, consumers, service, business to business, social government. So let me just show you exactly how many criteria we have here. They're not numbered, but I'm just going to demonstrate for you exactly how long this list of criteria can be. Do you have to fill out all of them? No, but the more thorough you are, the more you really think about what it is you really want, the faster you'll actually get it. That might sound contrarian, because I think a lot of people get the advice, leave your options open. And we will talk a little bit about in branding how that can actually slow down your transition. Not that you shouldn't. If you really need a job, be flexible and be open-minded. But when it comes to accelerating towards a new job, this is actually the way to do it. Gosh, I hope my voice can hang in there for you. Okay, so that's just the criteria portion of that. We'll get to the other portion of that. Self-awareness is something that some people go through their lives not having. It's certainly challenging to find a young person who is self-aware just because they have limited experiences. But even people who have experiences are still limited to knowing what's possible for them based on their own experiences. You don't know what you don't know. So one of the best ways to accelerate this process is to go out and pursue experiences, just like temping for me enabled me to try out different things, and not just even for weeks. Like, I had months long assignments at places, and I was able to see more of the inside and get to know people and get to know what they liked and didn't like about the company, and learn enough to know what I wanted and didn't want when I had a few other options. Tools that help. Shadowing might sound like something that a young person does, but actually it's plenty appropriate for an older person, more experienced person, or even a junior person who's not necessarily a student to go out and do before you decide what it is that you want to do. Narrowing down your options. You can narrow down your options by doing personality assessments. I'm just going to skip down to personality assessments for a second. I love personality assessments. I think they're so cool. They're so interesting. It's one of the things that I request from my clients before we have a branding consultation, because it gives me a lot of great insight about who they are. There are certain things that I've been able to learn from personality assessments that might not have come up through a regular branding consultation. And I think they're really fascinating, really great tools for self-awareness. The gap that exists still with a lot of these personality assessments is maybe they leave you with a list of many different careers that you might consider that will utilize the qualities and skills that you possess. But it doesn't necessarily, that's where it leaves you. And that's where it stops. You don't necessarily know exactly how to go from there with these different careers. I mean, it's great to be open-minded. And I mean, I remember when I was in high school or college, I don't remember when it was very, very young, but this list included things like teacher and nurse and things that didn't really seem all that related. And I was like, well, how do I know if I want to be a nurse? Like, I don't think I want to be a nurse, but how do I know if I want to be a nurse or not? Some of the things you might be able to rule out just because it doesn't resonate with you. But then you're still left with quite a bit. So shadowing people is a way to narrow down the field of what's possible, or even what you want to pick first. Volunteering is a great way to get more exposure to people, jobs, industries, needs that are out there that are unmet or that are not being met adequately that you want to pursue further. And external input. It takes a lot of courage for someone to ask the people who they know best and who know them best to give them feedback about who they are and what's best about them and what's not so great about them. And it also takes courage for somebody on the other end to provide that feedback. Things that are complementary might not be as hard to provide, and yet still are so valuable in this self-awareness process, because when I go through a branding process with my client, we identify 4 to 6 branding points that become the pillar of their content. And that's me and my client working together. And I can tell you that I ask really great questions. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of. I live to hear on a daily basis, that's a really great question. I love that. And still, I know that when we come up with these 4 to 6 branding points, that they're pretty accurate. That doesn't mean that that's all there is to this person. So I tell them to go out, ask the people who know them best to provide feedback on them. And that's part of, oh no, I don't know if I'm connected. I don't know if I'm connected. Oh, well, should I go on? I don't know. Maybe we're recording now.
You will no longer hear beeps until someone else joins the conference.
Connection restored. Okay. We're back. Sorry about that. In this process, external input is more about learning what qualities and skills that you have that other people value in you that you might not have known that you had. Asking your friends why they hang out with you, asking your friends and family, and not even just the things that are complimentary. The courage really comes from, what is it that I'm not getting about what the impression that I make? What are the risks that I present when I'm telling people about myself that I might not be recognizing? I'm sure this happens to people all the time, but last night I met somebody who probably didn't know that he was turning off employers by challenging them in a very aggressive manner. As a coach, I try to be very honest and say things in a very compassionate way. So, in my way, I said, "Well, I wonder if the people on the other end, are maybe getting a little bit defensive about that." And then, it didn't turn into a great conversation, but I was glad I got it off my chest. I was glad maybe I gave him something to think about. Not everybody can, not everybody will want to hear that, and I'm not always, maybe they want to hear it in a different way than I would say it, which is always good to know if you're evaluating a coach, of course, if you're receptive to the way that they deliver feedback to you. And that is, a tough space to put yourself in too, that you can reassure them, hey, whatever you say, I'm going to be okay with, because that's a hard promise to make, but so much value can be brought out of the process. Optimal outcome of this is that you're 80 to 100% sure that you are on the right path. And you know that you're on the right path. How it feels is that it pulls you. We did a podcast this month for our newsletter. It's called Epic Career Tales. We did a spoken interview and a written interview with an Emmy Award-winning producer of news, and she's a journalist as well. And I asked her, what does a calling feel like for people who don't know, who haven't had that sensation yet? And I was surprised that almost immediately she said, it's a burden. I didn't expect that. I thought she was going to say, oh, it's so great, to have something that you feel so passionate about, and you're doing the right thing with your life. When she said that, I automatically knew that she was right. I had to acknowledge that I feel that way too. This is my calling. It's my passion. I love it, and I'm great at it. And at the same time, that it's so great that I wake up excited to do it. It's such a pull on me. I want to spend time with my family. I want to be there for other people. But this is probably one of the first careers that I've had that nobody, and this is what makes it easy to be an entrepreneur at it, nobody has to ask me to do what it is I'm supposed to do, because it's what I want to do. The problem is sometimes when other things in my life, I have to create a balance with them, because this is what I want to do. I work at home. I've been working at home with my kids as they've grown up, which has been a great blessing to be home with them. At the same time, I'm home with them. It's really easy, especially when it can be frustrating to be around them because they're fighting or whatever, to be like, oh, I'd rather be working. It's really a funny sensation, but it pulls you. That's how you know it's right. When you identify it and you wake up the next day and you're like, I can't wait to get started to find out how I can become this. So what I'd asked the attendees in the previous webinar to do is to rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10. And I believe at this stage, we had anywhere from 2 to 8 at this stage. So we had some people who knew what they wanted, some pretty low, 3, 4s, and then all the way up to 8, but nobody was a 10, which was surprising to me. Second stage, branding. What makes you uniquely valuable? Notice I didn't say qualified. I didn't say you have 25 years of experience, right? So I worked for a firm. They put us through some really great personal branding training, before personal branding was really even a thing. And it was amazing. They were teaching us how to build our personal brand as recruiters so that we could create synergy and leverage relationships for sales and obviously placements. And the training was like I said, it was eye-opening. It was definitely a foundation of where I am today. But when we were done, well, I had to ask my boss. I said, "What is our brand as a firm?" And he just said, "Well, we have 25 years of experience in IT placement, and and he just kept repeating it, and I knew right away that the brand was not clarified. That made it tricky for me to establish. I knew how to establish a personal brand and compete, myself against other recruiters who might want to represent candidates for positions. But as far as my firm goes, I really couldn't tell them, why they would want to choose my firm over any other firms that might be represented in a company. And that created challenges in my ability um, to place people. And then furthermore, when I started to get more into visiting clients, to articulate it to them as well. It's an approach. It's a way you think about things. It's the unique path that you've taken, your perspective, your worldview, your values, the way you solve problems, how that manifests in your daily job, how you do things that are different from other people, or how you bring people together. It's a culmination of everything. And then furthermore, with your brand, in order to really present your brand powerfully, you have to make sure people get a visual depiction of what that looks like, to be the person who benefits from that value that you are bringing. And how do you know if you're unique? You might think like these qualities are great, but the whole point of having a brand is to be able to distinguish yourself among other people. And if there's a set of skills that are required for your job, and your brand is based on those sets of skills that are required for the job in the first place, if you're required to be detail oriented, you're bound to compete against other people who are also detail oriented. That's not your brand. It doesn't distinguish you. That's just a skill you possess that's required for the job that you have. And how do you know if your uniqueness has value? You might think, I am great at creating consensus, or that might be something that you think is a great quality. But if there's somebody in an organization who doesn't want change and therefore doesn't want consensus, then it's not great and valuable, right? Which really doesn't matter, because that probably would result in a very poor and unfulfilling employment situation for you in the end anyway, right? So, and then how do you know you're giving employers what they need for interview? And this, again, is even when there's no job posted. I think a lot of people think that this hidden job market is an enigma. I asked people that I was speaking to a group of 45 or 50 job seekers last night before an event. I think a lot of clients come to me and they have to take a leap of faith that this hidden job market is something that actually exists, so that they do the activities that it takes to actually generate an opportunity that's not posted. There's always that tendency to say, wait, but these are posted. We know these are opportunities. Why would I spend my time trying to generate an opportunity that I don't know if it even exists? And then once they actually see that it works and they generate opportunities, that's like the light bulb goes off and the flame starts, and suddenly they see that what they thought wasn't possible before is possible, and that opens the door to all these other things that they could be doing, because now they realize they can create opportunity. That's job security. How to accelerate your branding is to do market research. Now, these first two stages 1 and 2, I'm not going to call them steps because in a lot of ways they overlap. I'll just call them stages. But stages 1 and 2 are kind of what I call the axe sharpening stages. So, Abe Lincoln said that if he had 6 hours to chop down a tree, he would spend the first 4 hours sharpening his axe. And that's exactly what these first two stages are. I think in the beginning, people find it difficult to not be in action, not be applying to jobs on job boards and doing those things that they're used to doing. One, because that's their habit, and the brain resists habit, and we'll talk more about that later. Or changes to habit, rather, the brain resists. But also, because they find they're not sure if it's really going to pay off in the end, and that's a tough thing to validate. So we want to make sure that we do the market research, That's front end work that will make the back end go that much smoother. I have worked with clients, and even if it took a while to get the resume nailed down, this is the one-on-one processes that I have been providing for years, and we'll talk about how that's not going away, but we're going to be able to offer much more than that now. In the one-on-one process, there's an opportunity at the end to do a review of your resume. Sometimes that it's as many reviews as you want until you're 100% satisfied. So if that becomes a process and it takes a while to get the resume down, sometimes they can be like, oh, but I wanted to be in action. Once that resume is optimized, once the LinkedIn profile is optimized and you're in action, it can take as little as 2 weeks to see multiple opportunities start to generate and percolate. And that's when it becomes really exciting. So much like, you'd want to spend time sharpening your axe before you go through the manual labor of trying to chop down a tree with that axe. This is what these first 2 stages are. So market research is really critical. Any company who's waiting to invest or evaluating investing in a long research and development process, they're going to be doing market research first, right? That's the part of the research and development that comes first. They have to research before they can develop to make sure that the investment pays off in the end, and it's exactly the same thing here. You want to answer the questions that come to mind for the person on the other end. How do you know what questions arise? Again, market research. Market research is website, online research. There's lots of data out there, but market research can also mean talking to your network. And often the research that you conduct through your network is really great setup for later networking. You could potentially make connections just by asking people to answer some questions about companies or people or industries for you, and then eventually, because you've already established that relationship, that rapport, you can tap their shoulder later to say, hey, this is exactly what I want, this is what I have to offer it, can you help me? And because you already built that relationship, it becomes that much easier to have it follow through. And validation again is kind of like that stage I was talking about, where we ask people to validate the branding tools, the branding points that we develop with my clients. There's also, talk about the tools that you can use for these things. Branded content that you would use in your campaign would be your resume, of course, a LinkedIn profile, an infographic, and I'm not going to try to go to my website again and show you the infographic sample because I don't want the connection to be slow that it cuts off the recording here. But if you go to epiccareering.com and you look under products, you'll see sample and go to infographic. You'll see 2 samples of infographics there. That's a visual depiction of you. It's not necessarily applied as it's not a replacement for a resume. It's a networking tool, which we'll talk about more when we talk about networking. Biography, which is a must-have for any executive. Even just to have a biography enhances and validates the brand that you have as an executive. So we have a resume builder is something that we offer for this stage. Let me just minimize this here. What we have built that's different from other resume builders is kind of a Mad Lib fun. This isn't, where's the document? All right, so we have a template here, okay? These are parts of speech, and what we have tied to these parts of speech, which I can't show you right now because it wasn't working for me, some technical difficulties, are drop-down menus. So these are actually not just your regular Word documents. These are coded and correspond to a database that we have built of acceptable words that you would build for these things. So we have these fun exercises. I think they're fun. You can play with it for a while and just, pick different words that, may not make sense just to be fun. And then you can really start to think about your experience and ways to structure it. So the resume builders that I've seen out there, they're good starters. They have content in there that you can just drag and drop. It's generic, it's not branded, but if you need a resume just to apply for something, for anything, then that'll do. But this is more for people who want to be intentional about where they land and make sure it's the right step for them. This is the next step up from the resume builders that are out there. And then additionally, we also offer fully branded resumes where we would do the consultation with you, a 90-minute consultation with you to develop your brand, and then also bring you through a procurement process for anecdotes to substantiate that brand. LinkedIn profile builder. I don't have that up. Sorry, I did have it up in the last webinar, but that is not as fun as a resume builder. It's not based on a drop-down menu. It's really just questions that you can answer that would enable you to write your content, because at its best, your LinkedIn profile is a complement to your resume, and it sounds like you talking about what you do and all the passion that you have for what you do and that contribution that you're driven to make, and what that has looked like for companies in various different ways, what you've been able to achieve, who you've been impacting, not just the results that you've had, but who's been impacted by those results. You're following the trickle down and impact of the things that you've been able to achieve, your results, and all the people that you've enjoyed making a contribution to. Some of those questions that you can answer that would build your LinkedIn profile content. Then there's also a brand feedback request template that we offer as a tool. This is kind of a nice little letter and some easy questions that people can answer. You can send it to the people who know you best and request for them to give you some feedback on your brand. This includes the process, after you would work with us to develop your branding points. You could send that to them, or even before you develop your branding points, if you wanted to use the same letter before you even get to the branding process and the career discovery process, you can use the same letter to ask them to provide you with information that can help you in your career discovery process, and as well as make sure that validation is clear, that you are presenting yourself comprehensively and accurately, making sure you're highlighting the things that other people find more important as well. Optimal outcome of this stage is that you get suitable leads and introductions, not just any leads and introductions, but the ones that come into you are actually on point with what your criteria are and with your targets. You get lots of interview invitations. That doesn't have to just look like you got a response to an application that you sent. This could also look like, hey, I was talking to Jim, and Jim thought that we should connect. Why don't we meet up for lunch? Interviews don't have to look like traditional interviews. Sometimes the best interviews start as just one-on-ones that turn into interviews. The interviews focus on value. When you have a really great resume, then you don't have to worry as much about talking about things that might pose potential risks to employers, and they don't have to ask questions specifically to validate your skills. Your skills are already validated. Your qualities are already validated. The interview looks a lot different. It's more like, here's what we're doing here, George, and this is how we see this person fitting into the big picture. We'd like to take you for a tour of the facility and introduce you to a few people. Things move much quicker when you have a resume and companion things that we'll talk more about in the interview stage that help the interview go faster as well. JOMO with quality. So JOMO stands for job momentum. It's kind of our way of talking about when things pick up. JOMO looks like 4 to 5 to 6 viable opportunities. When I say viable, I mean you would actually accept them and be excited to accept them. They fit your criteria. They are paying what you want. They are the roles that you want. They are in the kinds of companies with the kinds of culture that you thrive in. That's what that looks like. So I'd ask people to rate themselves. Most people were between a 2 and a 7 at this stage. I think one person might have said 9. And when we did the live broadcast. So networking is the third step. These are places where you look for networking events, Meetup, Mac Alliance, Eventbrite, Facebook. Networking, one thing that I want to make sure I portray to people is that if you have a negative perception of networking, then you might not have had a great experience with it, but you can have a different experience with it. Networking doesn't have to look like going into a room of strangers and shaking hands and collecting business cards. Networking could look like finding people who have hobbies that are the same as you, people who care about the same things you care about. It could look like you getting together even with your friends and just leveraging those conversations toward professional aims. Meetup is a great place for professional groups, but don't forget to explore the personal interest groups as well. You can actually take relationships a lot further when they're on a personal level, which brings me to other accelerators, which is making new friends. It only takes one introduction to lead you to your next job, and it's hard to tell who that introduction is going to come from. So when you're networking, don't just think of these people as professional contacts or people that will be in your LinkedIn network. You think of these people as potential friends. Gravitate to people who you think you might have something in common with. And at the same time, you might miss out on somebody that way. So, talk to everybody. But as far as a time investment goes, when it comes to networking, it's not about making friends with everybody. We'll talk about a tool called Jibber Jobber that helps you manage your transition activity. And one thing that we divert from where it comes to Jibber Jobber is they make it a goal for you to make all contacts 5-star contacts. And I think that realistically, it's not important to give everybody a great impression of you. I mean, there's a quote the other day that I read that was like, there's no one clear path to success, but there is one way to ensure failure, and that's to try to please all the people all the time. That's kind of the essence of branding. You used to be able to customize your resume for this job and that job and that job, and now you have one LinkedIn profile, just one. So be all the dimensions that you have in one LinkedIn profile. That can be a challenge for people. And then in the same time, when it comes to networking, if you're like me, you have groups of people who like different things. And sometimes you get those people together and they might not get along because you're multidimensional and your network can look the same. You don't have to spend time around the same people, and you also don't have to spend time around people who don't resonate with you. But spend time expanding your network and meeting new people in general. And then also make sure that the people that you do resonate with, that you take that relationship further and make it something personal, make it something fun. Get to know each other on a fun level. Target company list. Let's go back to this tool. Sorry, we're not at the tools part yet. This is a step that I find most people skip, although it's really a critical step. And I was happy last night when I spoke to that room of people that actually most of them did have like a top 10 list of companies. We actually recommend as a culmination of your efforts that you would eventually have 35 to 50 targets, but not all of them would actually fit your criteria. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So tools, you would have contact management. Jibber Jobber is one of those contact management systems. Conversation converter, it means that you have a guide when you meet with someone to make sure that there's an agenda that's followed that ensures that inspired action is taken. So this goes back to one of those bullets that I told you about, ensuring inspired action, and a follow-up system. So what we have provided here, where is it? Okay. Target company. Okay. Let's start with this one. This is a contact management system. Okay, you would have their name up here. This is not your average Excel spreadsheet. It does have codes and guides and your agenda up here in the red, as well as it's gamified. So actually, if you complete all of these fields every single time you have a conversation, you would get some points. These are experience points. These are reward points. It's just kind of an extra incentive might help you remember a little bit better how to complete these fields, or that you do have to complete these fields, and eventually it'll become a little bit more second nature. The things that usually people stumble upon that aren't second nature is asking what you can do for them. And then making sure also that they know what they can do for you. That can be a tricky part too. I saw a woman named Ellen Weber speak at a TEDx event. She was a founder of a venture capital firm and also in charge of Temple's Fox School of Innovation. Had some kind of major part in that. And she was specifically giving guidance on identifying ways to help people. And she pointed out something that I completely agree with, that sometimes if you just ask people generally, what can I help you with? It doesn't help them, because it puts the burden of telling you what they need help with on them. And what we want people to become more intuitive about is finding clues and using cues in conversation that help them identify the needs already. In other words, it would look like somebody saying, I'm sorry, I don't have time to meet. I have, so much on my plate. I'm so busy. I don't know if I'll have time this week or next week. And then you saying, oh, I'm sorry to hear you're so busy. You sound pretty overwhelmed and stressed. What are you working on right now that, what kind of resources do you need that might help you accelerate your work and have more free time? It looks like offering suggestions. She was talking about how when she was going through a tough time, people would say, hey, do you need help? And that was, again, a burden for her in a time in her life that she was already feeling burdened. And it was the friends that would just be like, hey, can I bring a casserole? Or do you need some help with your house cleaning? Or, the specific things that would really help people more specifically. And then what they can do for you. So here's an agenda that you would want to complete that helps you convert a conversation into action for both parties. And this is also a follow-up system. So notice you'll read here, always enter a follow-up date, always. That means that even if there's no clear conclusion from your conversation about who does what and when, even if the person says, I'll give you a call in 2 weeks, you take the accountability and enter a follow-up date. And this so far right now does not integrate with the calendar, but we're looking into how to incorporate that tool into this Excel spreadsheet, so that when you put a follow-up date, it will automatically enter into your calendar. Okay. So, basically, I hope this is a relief to you to know that networking looks more like spending time around people who inspire you, and people who have achieved things that you admire, people who share your values, share your interests. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to be always around somebody who's the same as you. Sometimes you can appreciate things that are completely different. And sometimes you might be surprised by who you make a connection with. But the point is to get out there and test things out, experiment, adventure. The optimal outcome of this stage is that you increase profile visits and invitations to connect. And you get invitations to other events, professional and personal, and inspired introductions to people and one-on-ones. And then I asked people to rate themselves here, and some people were 2, and some people went all the way up to 8, but most people were just below 5. Distribution. How you get the word out about your brand. The hand method is 4 fingers in a funnel. So your funnel is however you like to be contacted. However, in the flow of your day, you gravitate to find out what's going on with people. For some people, that's email. For some people, you might spend most of your time on email, but you don't like email. You'd rather be on Facebook. And Facebook can be one of those funnels. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as, that is, your target company is also on that funnel or is friendly with that funnel. That's something that market research should bring up, is what resources are they using to recruit, and then that would also be incorporated in your decision about what these other 4 fingers are. These 4 fingers are channels. It could be social media, it could be something else, could be speaking. We'll talk about what all those four fingers could be, but really what they are marketing channels, which is again is borrowed from corporate marketing. But it's ways that you attract people outside of your network to your funnel to get you to contact you. And there's a book by a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a social media thought leader. And it's called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And it's a formula for how you can make sure that your social media posts aren't overwhelmingly about one thing, about a professional request or endeavor. I know that I have a lot of friends who are, and I'm really proud of them. They're starting their own thing. They're going out there. They're being independent consultants and representatives for many different companies. Makeup, home products, and all natural things, purses, and healthcare, fitness. And these, they're so into it. They found their passion, but some of the friends that I see comments is like just saying, "Stop selling me stuff." Again, that's kind of like that pull we were talking about, right? But that's this jab, 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 right hook is just to make sure that give people value, give people value, give people value, give them what they want, give them something interesting, give them something that entertains them, and then ask them to do something for you. They'll be much more inspired and engaged. Things that are creative and bold usually don't take long to work. They're high impact. That's what that means. They don't take long to work. They might require a little bit of front end work, but they accelerate things very quickly. There are a lot of case studies in job searching about people have done things that are creative and bold. I'm sure we have written a blog even recently about things that you can do that are completely different to stand out. It's one of the things that I talk about almost every time I do a speaking engagement is how to stand out. And last night at the event, there was even another hiring manager who was up there, an owner of a company, who was giving people advice. And he said, for us, if you want our attention, you have to do something a little bit different. That means maybe going above and beyond that email thank you to you send somebody a small gift or a token, something funny, send them an article, send them something interesting, something that lights up their day, something that they can share and look good. Those are actually small things, but when we're talking about creative and bold, we are talking about big things. We're talking about the people who have taken out billboards, or they have, rented a skywriting plane, or not everybody can afford those things, but it doesn't necessarily take money to be creative and bold, and it can pay off in dividends often. Some of the tools you would use for this stage, obviously social media. Now there are so many social media you can use, and which ones to use can be very tricky. Of course, we talked about how market research plays into which ones you would do, and we have a webinar that can help you decide which ones resonate the most with you. And that webinar is called Insider Edge to Social Media, 3 Success Secrets of Getting Hired. And within that webinar, we talk about the major platforms that are used in recruiting for most companies, how they're using them, if you were going to use them, what you want to know about them to get started, and enough to know about them to choose, again, which ones you would want to use. This webinar is broken up into 3 sections. It's really kind of like, what's the problem in job searching these days? What's the solution? And then the second section is how to be reactive optimally. So when there is a job search, when there is a position posted, how you can not be that one of thousands of resumes in a database, but instead be the person that gets to the top of the pile, gets the enticing invitation to an interview. And then the third section is how to be proactive, and we'll be talking about that too. But that's that webinar, Speaking Engagements Yourself. Now, speaking engagements can be a little bit scary. If it excites you a lot and scares you even a lot, then it's probably the right thing to do. There's groups that you can join, like Toastmasters International. There's chapters all over the place to help you get more comfortable in a nice, structured coaching setting. And then there's just throwing yourself in there. And then there's the YouTube videos and Vimeo, and there's lots of tools these days that you can record yourself at home and re-record it if you don't like it and get it to a place where you really like it, and green screens you can create at home. I mean, the opportunity to be visible is exponential. So it's something that you can try and leverage and see if it does actually for us. We've had a lot of success with video marketing. We have I think 35,000 views. It's not like millions or anything like that, but of our YouTube channel, and it's pretty incredible to get in front of that many people. And it's about expanding your network and getting in front of a new audience of people that you wouldn't necessarily, in the geography that you're in, and the industry that you're in, and the role that you're in, exposure. The infographic, again, you can go to epiccareering.com under products and then go to infographic, and you'll see the 2 samples there. The infographic is not a resume, like I said. It's a networking profile, and it's meant to be a training document. So you give these infographic resumes, there's 2 purposes. One is to give them to your network when you speak with them about what you're looking for and the unique value that you present, and how to identify the profile of a company that might be a good target for you, and how to identify even what are called needs indicators, which is something they might overhear as they're out there networking, that would enable them to identify that this is a strong lead for you. When you can train your network to be out in their world networking on your behalf, how to identify leads for you, then you multiply yourself by, again, an exponential number. It's like having your own little sales force out there. That's a pretty amazing thing to have. The infographic is a great tool for that. It's visual. It's the ones that you'll see on the website are kind of very bright and busy. And admittedly, they're branded that way specifically, but you might want something more simple. It's really meant to be kind of aesthetic, visual, memorable, and in that way, it's something, it's shareable, really. The optimal outcome of this phase is that you're the person that's top of mind to a large population of people when an opportunity presents itself. Okay, so that would look like not just that you're getting introductions and invitations, but that people are telling you that they heard about you from somebody you don't even know. That's what that looks like. So I asked people to rate themselves in this area, and actually most of them were below a 5. All right, I'm hanging in there with my voice. Hopefully you're hanging in with me. The proactive pursuit of companies. Again, this goes back to having a target company. So you would research companies. You would have a hot list of companies. You would, as you're out there on the job boards, I'm not saying not to exclude job boards as a resource for you, but you would definitely minimize your time and not necessarily be using the online applications as your first route into a company. That would actually be a last route into a company. Your first route into a company would be to, 1, research it, I'd put it on your list of target companies, and then find out if it meets your criteria. And then finding individuals in the company. There might be a lot that you can find out about a company online, but people inside the company are going to be a better resource of information for some of the criteria that you might have. And having criteria that you need to identify is a really good agenda for a phone call. Lets people know, like, hey, I have 3 or 4 questions about the company. It's kind of like a finite period of time that people can feel not overwhelmed that they need to give you help with. And it helps them help you much better. Proactive pursuit also includes in-person drop-ins, which, yes, still happen. And yes, people still get hired that way. My uncle did. And meet and greets. Tools. Let me go back to this. This is the same as the criteria identification tool. So once you identify your criteria, you would add a target here. Okay. And then you would code it. If it meets the criteria, you would put a yes. If it does not meet the criteria, you would put a no, and you would go down your criteria. Okay. And then at the bottom here, it would tell you how many yeses you got and also the percentage of match that this is. That's missing. I must have done that in the last presentation, just deleted that by accident. But you can see here it says 0%. So there's a formula in there that I obviously deleted by accident, but that's what it does. Formulates it. And I just talked to an employer last night, and there was an employer that I used to recruit for who had calculations similar to this. This is kind of where I got the idea years ago that we wouldn't be able to mathematically or technically submit anybody who did not meet 80% of the criteria. It automatically calculated. We had to go through, check off the skills that they had, the years of experience they had, and it would calculate if the candidate was less than 80%, and if it was, they would automatically reject it. Wouldn't even be submitted in their system. And that's kind of the first place that I heard about this, but last night it was validated once again as I was talking to a recruiter from QVC, which is a company many of my clients have said that they are including it on their target company list. I've even had clients come from QVC, and it tends to be notoriously hard to get into. So I asked her, point blank, what does it take to get into QVC? Obviously, they have a lot of competition coming in, and she did talk about networking. Once you get somebody in here, they always have friends that want to come in here. So inside referrals is the number one way into QVC. But she did say, because a lot of people apply for multiple positions at QVC just for the chance to get in. She said, if you meet 80% of the criteria, then make it a point to apply. So they follow kind of the same guidelines that we're promoting here, that 80% rule. The 3 critical steps that are borrowed from corporations to ensure job search progress is to track, measure, and improve. Okay. If you have had any metrics associated with your job, then you know that this is true. That's the whole point. And big data is the whole purpose of big data is so that we can identify trends and figure out how to course correct trends that are going in a not so favorable direction. This is the same, but more so than just course correcting things that are not going in a favorable direction is also recognizing what we're doing right. This is a tool that we offer in 2 different ways. One is just as a blank spreadsheet with formulas in it already entered that you customize yourself with web resources that you do, contact formatting. That's like a database. You might put your phone. These days, people use their iPhone as their primary contact database. Professional organizations, alumni organizations, volunteering, recruiters. And research resources. Excuse me. There are different ways to set your goals. If you're not employed right now, and usually we set a goal of 40 hours, but this can be adjusted because it's really not about quantity of hours. It's really about quality of the resources that you're investing time in and the quality of the results that you're getting. So this is a really great way to make sure that what you're inputting is creating the optimal output. And this is where you keep track of that. And this also has gamified features. And there's points allocated towards various things. So you keep track of how much time you're investing every day. And then you would also put results in here that would tell you that what's going on. You can, on the high touch part of the service, we customize this. We put in all these resources for you, and we send you a fresh spreadsheet every day, and you submit it to us, as well as all these other tools. And we help you tweak and evaluate and assess your performance every week to make sure that you're building JOMO week after week, job momentum. Jibber jabber tutorials. LinkedIn is really, obviously, 95% of recruiters are using it, and I think the percentage of job seekers is like 48. It's like a chasm between the number of job seekers who are using LinkedIn and the number of recruiters. It just doesn't make sense. It's another epidemic, much like the number of people who are under or unemployed or underpaid. 71% of America right now would be happy to jump ship from where they are. That's too many people that are not satisfied with their job, which is why I'm having this webinar. Hopefully, if you're one of them, I'm giving you what you need to be, part of the 29% of people who are perfectly happy where they are. News resources, Newsly and Google Alerts. So that's like you would, Newsly incorporates your social media. If there's anybody in your, like you're connected to on social media that makes the news, it informs you about it. And sometimes you can know about it before they do. Give them a nice congratulations and public kudos, and it makes them feel nice and warm and fuzzy. Again, they're activated and inspired to do something for you as well. Not that it's a tit for tat type thing, because that's not what networking is really about, but it just is a natural outcome of being somebody who adds value to other people. So Google Alerts is, you'd have to open a Gmail account to do Google Alerts, and that's free, so why not do it? You would specify through Google Alerts who you want to keep track of, or even what you want to keep track of. You could put in the name of the company, and I would recommend you do all of these things actually. The name of the company, name of individuals you identify, name of trends within your industry that you want to get news on. That's a really great way to make sure that when exciting things happen in your industry, you have something really exciting to share with these contacts that you're making that might help them and add value to them as well. The business journals, I'm a huge proponent of using business journals. I even wrote articles and had contests regarding the Philadelphia Business Journal. There are just leads in more places than you can imagine in the Philadelphia Business Journal. And I can't speak for other business journals, but I'd have to imagine that they're pretty comparable. Customized cover letters, that's customized. That's not taking a template and filling in different details. That is completely written for one recipient of a company that you know a lot about, and you're demonstrating you know a lot about. We have a secret sauce for cover letters, which you can follow and write your own, or we obviously do it here as well. And that video on YouTube is actually one of our best viewed videos. I think it's up to 20,000 or something like that. It's like the majority of our views are from this one video blog, and it's a cover letter secret sauce. And you can go to youtube.com/epic careering and take a look at the videos we've uploaded. Not all of them are career related. You'll see some of my daughters and things like that, but for 1 year, I tried out video marketing. It worked out very well. Right now, I'm trying out Periscope as a video broadcasting platform. But we'll probably go back to YouTube. In the very near future, probably this video will probably go up on YouTube eventually as well. I know it's longer than the usual YouTube video, but who knows? Maybe I'll put it on Vimeo. There's just so many things you can do here. But anyway, customized cover letters are a great way to target a particular company. We've had, QVC is a company that I've written a couple of cover letters for, but and without success, admittedly. But there are a lot of other companies in my area that are just as highly vied after. I had somebody asking me today just about this particular company, and we've had a lot of success with our cover letters, actually soliciting responses for jobs that weren't even posted within a couple hours. So that's a pretty good response when you can be that targeted. When it doesn't look like everybody else's cover letter, and it doesn't look like it's a form letter, it gets read most of the time. And that goes for hiring managers. I don't know necessarily about recruiters. I didn't read many cover letters as a recruiter, but some people do tell me they read them. Events. Going to events, just like we said, is another way that you can do that. We didn't have a rating here or a way to optimize it, but it looks exactly the same, really, as the optimal outcome of the networking. People you don't even know are proactive pursuit is just you get responses, you get interview invitations, you get just what I was talking about, that immediate, like, yes, you know what we're working on, and you've already articulated to us that you can bring us value and help us with that. Let's bring you in and talk to you. Interviewing. So I should have put a sample in here, which I realized when I was doing the last interview for a tea table, which looks like the requirements of a job on the left-hand side and what you have to match those requirements on the right-hand side. And when you bring those to an interview, there's really not much that needs to be discussed because it's easy to read, and people might just spend more time talking about the particular things you did around those skills rather than asking you if you have those skills. That's something you can even submit when you're working with a recruiter to them when they're presenting you to help them help you get an interview. Reverse interview looks like you filling out the criteria that you weren't able to identify from online resources or your network, people outside or maybe formally internally. So anything that you weren't able to identify about your criteria for a particular company, you would go and say, hey, let me see what I can ask about you. Not all of these you would want to. In fact, some of these criteria are around compensation, and when we get to the next stage, I'll tell you, it's not always the best. Interview stage is not always the best stage to talk about compensation. 30, 60, 90 are plans, what you plan to do. And there's a great career coach in my area, Eric Kramer. He has a tool called Interview Your Best. He's an interview coach that helps you prepare these 30, 60, 90-day plans. Something you'd want to ask permission when you get into an interview. If hey, I prepare this, can I show you? Usually just the fact that you made an effort to prepare something means that they would ask you, sure, yeah, let's see what's on there. The caveat that I want you to be aware of is that you don't want to seem presumptive, that you know too much about what's going on without being internal. And you also don't want to look like you're going to come in there and not without knowing what is actually going on internally, change everything or, make plans. But so there's a way that you want to do this that will be more well received, and then a way that you can do this that might take you out of the running. Achievement stories look a little bit different in the EPIC way. So traditionally, and what we used to create for people would be paragraphs, outlining different things that people would do that demonstrated, that they had skills, or, take a bullet from your resume and just really kind of fatten it out into 3 paragraphs or so. The output still kind of looks like that, but the process we use now is much different because we do that branding consultation where we identify 4 to 6 branding points, and then we do an anecdote procurement process where we give you a formula and you fill them out. And that formula and what you provide to us, it's not like an easy acronym. Like, I'm sure you've heard challenge, action, results. It's a lot more extensive than that. It's longer than, it's probably about as long as a word as acronym. But really, what you provide to us about those anecdotes is what gets compiled into the achievement stories, and they kind of write themselves at that point. That front end work makes that back end work that much easier. Tools that you use, there's a course that I recorded for SoundView Pro called Interview Skills to Get You Hired. I had tried to go out to my website and go there so that you could see it, but it slowed everything down, so I decided not to do that. But if you are interested in that course, you could go to my LinkedIn profile. I have it listed under my projects, and I think I also have a hyperlink to that in my summary. It used to be a free course that you could upgrade to get the companions for the course, but they've actually changed it now, and it's a $99 course, which is still great, tremendous value. It's a 2.5-hour course, and it's got some nice bonuses, including a meditation track that will help you mentally and emotionally prepare for your interview. We also offer interview coaching that includes a mock interview. In this, we give you a interview preparation document that gives you some sample questions based on various different interviewing methodologies. We don't recommend that you go through there and write down answers and memorize them. Being someone who's interviewed many, 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 many people, I could tell when answers were rehearsed, and it just, not to say that I wasn't compassionate, because obviously interviews can be very nerve-wracking, and being prepared is always a great thing. And knowing, what you want to say can really help you calm your nerves and be more confident. But in the same way, I felt like when answers are rehearsed, they come out, they're not, they don't sound genuine. You're not sure how authentic they are. You're not sure how authentic the person is in front of you. It creates some barriers that are really unnecessary. So our brand of interview coaching is more about helping you gain comfort in how you articulate who you are, what you do. We give you some formulas to follow. We give you, again, that interview coaching guide so you can be prepared and feel more confident, but it's not necessarily about choosing specific particular words. It's more about how you're being. You're being comfortable talking about you and all the things that you present as value to your future employer, and all the problems that you solve and the ways that you do it. And it's you even addressing things that pose potential risks that, maybe before you would have gotten defensive about, you would have been shifty. I know that nonverbal communication is 90% of communication. I was a communications major in college. I took many courses and studied nonverbal communication cues. But I'm not somebody who, and I might help my clients identify if they're doing something that's sending a nonverbal cue, but I'm not somebody who's going to say, oh, make sure you don't turn your face to the right, because that's associated with deception. I'm just going to teach the person how to not be deceptive, how to answer the question honestly and authentically without an emotional charge behind it, without defensiveness, so that they can just be themselves in various different situations. That's our better way of going, as far as I'm concerned. Optimal outcome of this is that both parties leave excited to see each other again, and then also look forward to seeing each other every day. And there were a lot of people during the polling part of this that had never experienced that, which to me felt like a little sad, because I know that I definitely had interviews where I was like, oh, cool. They seem like really great people. Sorry about that little connection break. The other thing is that you can start to visualize yourself waking up every day, excited to get into work, and leaving very satisfied. So, unfortunately, with the polls, that not enough people had that experience where they came out of an interview, and that actually is a testament to making sure that all those stages we went through prior are optimized and accelerated, because when they are, you get to this stage and the interviews are high quality. It's harder to determine whether they're a match, which is exactly why this little percentage thing really helps. This is preparation for when you have so many opportunities. The quandary is which one to pick. This is a logical process, a tool that you can use to make a logical decision about what your next opportunity is. And you don't have to use the logical process. You can use your heart, you can use your intuition, your gut, whatever it is that you want to make your ultimate decision, but it's good input for making a decision. And when you really have JOMO, you do find yourself in a position where you're like, gosh, I don't even know which one the best one is. They're all so great. Negotiating. We're on the last stage, and my voice has survived. I'm so happy. Hopefully you guys will hear this recording and get a lot of value out of it, since it's the second time I'm doing it in a row. Negotiating starts with knowing your market value. There are tools out there, salary.com, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, BLS.gov. And there's also recruiters, niche recruiters, who can tell you, what the market value for a position is. Just as a side, the market value of a position isn't always the same as your market value. It's something that I learned in that branding course that I took as a recruiter. Sometimes you possess things that are unique in the market that would actually add and enhance your value in the market. And so those are things to be aware of and things that you can learn in this process or in the market research process. Part of negotiating starts way before negotiating even starts. And that is, if you've worked with a financial planner, advisor, this is something you'll want to do with them if they haven't done this with you already. And that's reverse engineering your lifestyle goals and needs, both in the short term and the long term. What that looks like is you decide, what age you want to retire by. Your financial advisor helps you decide how much you need in the meantime and what the projections are as far as your investments go right now, or what you can invest right now as to how long that would actually take to achieve, or what you have to invest in order to achieve that. And if you're not in alignment where you're at right now, if there's some catch up needed, or if you need to look at a different course of action, it helps you make career decisions. And I'm not saying that you should make career decisions solely based on money, because obviously I'm a career coach and I know what's possible. I know you can be happy and be paid well. But sometimes you can just tweak something, or even take on something that's a side job, or even related to your same company, or take on something new that would boost your income in a new direction. And once you're aware that that gap exists, that there is not alignment between where you're at right now and your plan, then you can better strategize your career. And that's how I partner with financial advisors. They'll determine what the actual financial plan is, and I'll help people determine if there is a different career path that might enable them to fill the gap. And often there absolutely is. Another way to accelerate negotiation is to respond in 2 days or less. This is courtesy, but it's also really anticipated. When you do the front end work and you already know what range you're going to do, and what way you're going to negotiate, and even what perks and benefits have some kind of monetary value to your life, then it shouldn't take too long to evaluate whether an offer is something that you want to counteroffer or accept. Tools that are out there. One is a guide to win-win negotiating that we have developed, and then one is a compensation consultation. That's where we help you, again, establish the market value, an accurate market value of what you can demand as far as a range goes. And then negotiation coaching is when we go through the timing, when you talk about it, how you talk about it. We approach negotiating contrarian to a lot of our coaching cohorts. I was trained as a recruiter to negotiate both with employers and with candidates, and I don't take an adversarial approach to recruiting because of this. It's really a win-win coaching. It's how to work with the person you're negotiating with as your potential employer and future partner in what you're going to achieve together. It's highly important, I think, to make this a process of solving problems together and creating equal value. I don't want to necessarily call it compromise, because both parties, I think, can win, and the actual optimal outcome is that both parties feel like they're getting a really good deal and they feel respected and valued because the process was that well. And I think that there are methods out there of negotiating where you hold your cards close to your chest and you're not the first to divulge your information. And I've having been on the recruiting end, not that people should have been trying to negotiate with me or just withholding from me. As a recruiter, I'm kind of their advocate. It was to their benefit that they were just upfront about their salary, so I could say it's a no-go or not. They were coached to get in the door first, have a conversation about value, and that works with the employers, but not necessarily with third-party recruiters. And it became adversarial. It became, I don't know, you might become, a rough spot for my client, and I don't want to create that for them. So I don't know if I should present you now. And you don't want that to be an obstacle for being submitted or getting you through the doors, or gatekeepers like recruiters. Another thing that happens when negotiation goes well is that you start making plans that you've been putting off. You start to make investments that you've been putting off. You can even plan a vacation. I know that sounds weird when you're landing, but even if it's the following year, as soon as you're able to take a vacation, to really say, we've been putting off a vacation for 6 months and now we can look forward to it. And just even having that to look forward to is really just amazing. These are the things that an optimal negotiation can look like. And then we rated people, and we got a gamut. We got, I think, 2 to 8. So the number one difference between the people who are going to land in September and the people who are going to take longer is habit. I have been doing a lot of research over the past 5 years on behavior modification and human performance optimization. Well, actually, it's been longer than 8 years for 5 years for human performance optimization. It probably has been more like 8 years since I began coaching. But the behavior change modification came because I'm developing a mobile app, and it's meant to help guide you through job transition activities, help you expand your comfort zone, and keep you on a system. And what I've learned about forming good habits, and if you've ever read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, that's one of the first books that I've ever read on habits, and I continue to read books on forming good habits. In fact, I'm reading one right now called Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and I recommend it. I'm also my own guinea pig when it comes to habits. So when I want to form a good habit, I read a book, I try it out, and if I know it works for me, then I become a proponent of it. And the Miracle Morning so far has been working for me, as well as even just things that I've learned from Beachbody. I actually lost 22 inches in the past couple months as a result of the community. So community was something, it's number 3 on this list above structure and accountability. It's something that I realize is a major component, and it's a reason why, not that we're getting rid of the one-on-one coaching services, we continue to provide them, but there's 2 problems with that. Number 1 is that it's missing community. And community, I've learned, is just a major, major component for creating positive change. More, all these other things, support, guidance, accountability, structure, can come from a community, as well as, externally to a community. And the other reason is because the high-touch consulting services, this is probably the next slide, I'm getting ahead of myself, but the high-touch consulting services that we've been providing are not in everybody's price range. Most of our clients, in fact, who take advantage of that are working, and that leaves a population of people in transition that I can't service because they can't afford me, and that makes me very sad. So these group coaching programs enable me to provide similar value at a lesser income or investment bracket for people. Support, guidance is, support would be like things go tough. Things get tough and you need somebody to uplift you and get you on track, or just even, give you some compassion and make you feel like you can do it again. And guidance would be the daily, what do you actually do? Or weekly, what do you actually do that would make a difference? What are those high impact activities you should be doing every day? So we have developed this program to help people achieve their dream job. And I've been talking all this time about all these optimal outcomes, and really what that comes down to is a dream job. I think too many people find a dream job to be out of reach, when I have seen and I know that is completely achievable for most people. So our dream job breakthrough system, if you've had trouble getting landed in even a job that you like, let alone a dream job, this is especially for you. So all these tools that we've been talking about, they're included in this. And you might have noticed that they're not pretty. The mobile app that we're developing is very pretty, but it's also requiring a lot of investment to develop and time. And I was sitting on these tools for so long because when we tested them with our mostly tech community, 65% of our clients are in technology. They have high standards of what an interface should look like and how intuitive it should be. And while these things are not intuitive, they do require some extra guidance, which we're able and willing to provide. They're effective. They work. Once you know how to work them, they work. They actually help people land faster. So I did not want to sit on them anymore. I anticipate helping a lot of people on high volume to get through this, and I want the community to support each other in this as well. I'm excited about what this has to offer everybody. So obviously, if you have an interest in this, if we've intrigued you so far, then you might be concerned about the price. So let me just go through, things to think about. I had to do some market research for this mobile app to validate that people will actually spend money on career services as an industry. And so what I learned through this process was that most career coaches are hourly, $100 to $300, and veteran career coaches like myself can charge from $250 to $600 per hour. I don't, that is somewhat in alignment with me, but I don't charge by the hour. I charge by the service or the package. So I can give people concrete deliverables. That's really important to me. College students that I'll be working with, that I'll be teaching, they pay $1,000 or more per credit hour. The course that I'll be teaching is 10 weeks long, and it's 2 credits. So they pay $2,000 for a 10-week course on career management. And the price of a 6-month career coaching program can range anywhere from $5,000 for, a minimal package of the basics through $20,000 for, everything in nuts and bolts. And I'm sure it can go upwards even from there. The package that we are promoting for you today, that we would love for you to take advantage of so that you can land in September, is $547. And if you're out of work, that might seem like a scary investment. And I understand that. It's actually less than most of the branded resumes that I write. So for the price of one resume, you'll get all these guiding tools on creating. Let me go back to this list here of things that this creates here. Yeah, so this is that link that I was showing you at the bottom here, epiccareering.com, Dream Job Now. Okay, so if you go to this site, you can see everything that's in it. It's the Epic Careering Toolkit, and what that is are these tools here. All right, time and resource tracker, conversation tracker, criteria identification, and target evaluator. It also has a little bit of a checklist for your night before, so you can optimize tomorrow morning. It has weekly 30 to 90-minute group calls done in 12 modules, which are broken down here based on the 7 stages of transition. And these, they'll take various formats. There's more details down below at the bottom of the page as far as frequently asked questions, things you might be wondering about this. But I just want to cover the nuts and bolts here. Daily text or email job search to-dos. So these are high impact activities that you can do every day, and you can choose whether you want them sent to your phone every morning or if you want them sent via email every morning, so that in the morning when you wake up, you have your mission for the day that you can complete to help you build momentum. This is a mini version of the app that we're building, and that app, just so you know, we've been able to get people landed within 10 days. They already had the resume, LinkedIn profile, and they just started doing these high impact activities. They didn't even do all of them every day, and they didn't even do it in consecutive days. And that's how effective these high impact activities are. Also, for the community feature, we're going to have a private Facebook community and a private LinkedIn group. And you don't have to do both. You can do one or the other, but I'm sure that there's going to be questions that other people have or discussions that they start that could be valuable. So if you are on Facebook and LinkedIn, I encourage you to do both. So these modules really cover everything. Nuts to bolts, you can see we cover, besides the things that we've talked about already tonight, working successfully with recruiters, getting past gatekeepers, things that I know that job seekers have challenges with on a recurring basis, things that I hear job seekers telling me they have continual challenges with, and then that win-win approach to compensation negotiation. Yeah, so that's it. It's 547. What is great about this investment of 547 is that it doesn't even have to come out of your pocket. What I mean by that is that this is an add to cart button through PayPal, and if you were to use it, it could take you to a page. It would open up, PayPal. If you have a PayPal account, it would let you log in, and when you make a purchase, you get to choose which source you pay from, and one of the options that PayPal makes available to you is 0% financing for 6 months. You have to apply for that and qualify for that, but if you're granted that account, and I've had people who didn't think they were going to qualify, that qualified, then you don't have to pay it. It's like not even like a monthly payment that you have to make for 6 months. And there's a 90-day money back guarantee. And so that means that, if during those 90 days, you don't land or come close to landing or any other thing, like go through the frequently asked questions if you have questions or concerns, but all these situations that might come up that you wonder about, it's risk-free. It's like a no-brainer. It's like, why wouldn't you do this for yourself? Hopefully you feel like you deserve to land a really great job, to be happy, to get up excited to go to work in the morning, to go to work, to love your boss, to love the people that you work with, to enjoy the culture that you work in, to have your work appreciated and recognized, to get a paycheck that makes you happy and enables you to make plans and provide yourself with a lifestyle that's up to par, to be a provider to your family, to take care of them, to give them incomparable educational and cultural opportunities and opportunities to travel. All those things that you want for your life that your career can make possible for you. If it hasn't yet, this is what's possible through this program. This is what I want for you. This is what I want more people to be able to take advantage of. So if you have questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me, and please feel free also to connect with me on LinkedIn and to follow me on all the social media outlets that you can, because I share some different stuff on the different platforms. So thank you so much for joining me on this webinar. I am here to answer your questions. I am here if you decide that you don't want the program, but you want to go out and implement some of these steps on your own and you have challenges. I will tell you that the group calls are going to be starting after Labor Day. I'm going to be closing off registration for this. And as soon as you register, you get tools, within 24 hours that you can get started. So by tomorrow morning, potentially, you could be already started on your path to this new job, and just imagine 1 month from now you'd actually be setting up your new office and meeting your new coworkers and figuring out the best way to get to work in the morning, best way to get home. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for this new career adventure that you're about to embark on. I hope I can be your partner in that. I hope that the rest of my community can be your partner in that. I think that would be amazing. I can't wait to hear some great news about people landing. Thanks again for hanging in there with me. I look forward to all your questions and contacts, and I look forward to you joining me and my community in September. Take care.